Morning, Rabbi.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Hey, hey everybody.
Hi.
So, welcome everyone. And I don't know how many of you um, I don't know whether the word got out to all of you in terms of the change in content for today. I know some of you know this, some of you perhaps not, which is that the typical Judaism 101 curriculum is going to be paused for the day because of the snow. Let me explain. We were going to do at the synagogue uh, we were going to do a Tu B'Shvat Seder yesterday following Saturday morning services. Once it was determined that it would not be a good idea to attend services in person, definitely the right call. The idea was we did the services yesterday over Zoom, and then in order to still do something of a Tu B'Shvat Seder, the decision was made to make this a part of Judaism 101. And I was going to talk about Tu B'Shvat at least a little bit today, but I figured that why don't we just do a little bit of a Tu B'Shvat Seder, makeshift though it is, um, today. So I know we have some people who might not who might not typically be joining us for Judaism 101. We're glad to have you. Glad to have all of you, of course. And we're going to again, this is going to be kind of makeshift. We're going to kind of play with it as we go along. But then again, Tu B'Shvat is a holiday that is somewhat makeshift in terms of its history, in terms of the way it is observed. It has had a bit of a revival, or at least I'm not sure how much a revival, maybe just a vival, just some sort of just an embrace that has taken place over recent generations. So we're going to have a little bit of a celebration of that today. Um, for those who typically come into Judaism 101, whether on Zoom or on YouTube, uh, hopefully this will be a fun diversion from what we've been talking about. We've been talking about life cycle. Last week we talked about death and funerals, and so when we still have to cover mourning. So we are going to talk about that, but we're going to put that off by 2 weeks. I'll explain why. So obviously today we have the Tu B'Shvat Seder. Next Sunday, this is something that I indicated a while back. Um, we're going to talk about tefillin. And the reason why we're going to talk about it then is because in conservative synagogues across the world, actually, on Super Bowl Sunday morning, there is a custom to have what is known as the worldwide wrap. And the worldwide wrap is a time when we encourage people to wear tefillin, to wear phylacteries, as many adult Jews as possible. So what we're going to do is I'm going to be broadcasting from the synagogue that I was associated with in Charleston. Most likely is that's where I'll be, and I'll explain and demonstrate putting on tefillin, and maybe we'll do some prayers as well. So that's what we're going to do with Judaism 101 next Sunday. 2 Sundays from that, we'll go back to our remaining topics of the life cycle. So sorry for the big exposition, but any questions about that going forward?
Isn't that a program of the Federation of Jewish Men's Club?
It is. It is.
Not just but the other synagogues do it too, and they don't have a Federation men's club.
So I know that in fact Mark Foreman, I know that you're going working to create a men's club for the Knoxville Jewish community in general. if I understand right. But not every synagogue necessarily has, not every conservative synagogue has their own FJMC chapter necessarily. So it's something that we're working on, at least getting, some semblance of, going forward. So men's clubs, they've been an effective organization for a long time. Some synagogues have very strong versions of it. Sometimes some of them not as much. So this is something that we are, trying to at least get off the ground somewhat. So I figure we'll have some sort of gesture toward that on next Sunday. So anyway, so thank you for your patience with all this. So Tu Bishvat, where do we get Tu Bishvat from? Where do we get the title of it from, for instance? It's when a handful of the students that I tutor, I was trying to explain a little bit about it and trying to remind them that Tu B'Shvat has nothing to do with the number two. It is a designation, and actually, I'm going to kind of explain how we get this particular word. Um, uh, Shvat refers to a Hebrew month. We are in the Hebrew month of Shvat. So it's Tu B'Shvat. It is something in the month of Shvat. So what's the two part? Let me do a quick whiteboard to explain. So if you are I think we talked at some point about gematria, about the idea that different Hebrew letters have particular um, numeric values. So if you were to write out the Hebrew letters that add up to 15, well, the first thing you might think to do is take the letter Yud, which is 10, has the numeric value of 10 as it is the 10th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And then you might take the letter Hey, which has a numeric value of 5. It's the 5th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Well, the problem is if you put Yud and Hey together, Yud and Hey is part of the Tetragrammaton. The Tetragrammaton is the name of a dinosaur that went extinct millions of years ago. I'm kidding. The Tetragrammaton is not actually having anything to do with the dinosaurs. It refers to the word Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey, which comes together to for a name of God. And the idea is that you're not supposed to write Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey indiscriminately. You're not supposed to do it, just randomly because, we're trying to not take God's name in vain. And so the idea of every time we were to write out 15, that we'd have Yud and Hey together, not such a good idea, according to our sages. So instead, what we do is we take a couple of other Hebrew letters. So you have the Hebrew letter Tet, which has a numeric value of 9, as it is the 9th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And then you can take a letter Vav, which has a numeric value of 6. 9 plus 6 equals 15. So on the 15th day of Shavat, in which we do this holiday every year, the 15th day of Shavat, we put together the letter Tet and the letter Vav, and then we put a vowel on the in the middle of the Vav to make an oo sound, and all of a sudden you have the word two, and that's how we get two Bishvat. Now, I guess we could have instead of doing, I guess instead of doing two, we could have done a different vowel. We could have done you make an O sound, and that would have been to bishvat. I don't know. It doesn't have the same ring to it. I think tu bishvat works a lot better.
Why is it the fifth? Why is it fifth? Why does it have to be 15?
Why does it have to be 15?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's an excellent question. All right, so why is it on the 15th? Well, um, the Talmud teaches that there are several new years over the course of a year. Now, what do we mean? There are several times in which we mark the beginning of a new cycle, right? We have this in the secular world, right? We have in the secular world, we have, we have a lot of ways of counting time. We have, of course, January 1st being the beginning of the secular calendar, but, fiscal years oftentimes, begin June 1st or July 1st. We have all these different, systems in which we start counting time. So in the Jewish, in the Jewish world, it's now different, right? So we have, for instance, Rosh Hashanah, which is the beginning of the month of it's the first day of Tishrei, which takes place in the fall. And Tishrei is, that particular one is the beginning of the new calendar in general, the new actual year. But there are other ways that we begin counting. Another one refers to the another one of these. I think it's like Rosh Hashanah ha Behemot, and it refers to how we, and that's the first day of Elul, and it refers to, like it's a kind of a mundane thing. It has to do with, ownership of animals and, sort of accounting for that. That one I honestly don't know a whole heck of a lot about. But that is another way that we sort of start counting time for a year. Another one is uh, the first day of Nisan, which was the biblical New Year, right? In the Hebrew Bible, um, the month of Nisan, which was known as Datsun for a while before the owners changed the name. If you get that, then you're older than I am, or or my age. Anyhow, so that is, so in the Torah they referred to Nisan as the first month
That
because
was terrible, by the way.
I'm sorry.
So that was terrible.
I know that was pretty awful. I agree. I
It was
agree.
great though.
Okay, no worries, no worries. Um, the so that was, the month of the Exodus, which takes place in, the beginning of spring. um that was considered the first month, right? You also have another Rosh Hashanah of sorts, which is the first day of the month of Adar, which is the month prior to Nisan. And the first day of Adar, honestly, it's, for lack of a better phrase, it's like the tax deadline, meaning you had to make in biblical times your annual contribution to the temple or the sanctuary maintenance on the first of Nisan. So the first of Adar is when they warn everybody, okay, you've got a month. So it's around the first day of Adar that we do what's called Shabbat Shekalim, which means the Sabbath of money, essentially. So that was essentially, it wasn't the tax deadline. It was the warning of the tax deadline more than anything else. Um, so all of those are considered New Year's of sorts. And then we have what the Talmud tells us is the 15th of Shavat, which is the new year of the trees. Yeah, what just happened? Hold on a second. Did I lose the whiteboard? All right, I might have lost the whiteboard, but you got what I'm saying. The it's the new year of the trees, and it's the 15th of Shavat. Now, on a day like today, when you look out the window, if you are in Knoxville, Catherine, are you in California, if I may ask? Oh, you came back to Knoxville just in time for the
Yeah, I'm in snowy Knoxville.
you came back just in time. No,
Could you
no,
back up
well,
and
we're glad to have you in town, of course.
could you back
Uh,
up the New Year's is I mean, how could you get a better reading for New Year than the first day of the Exodus? So how do we get the New Year we got now that we're using now?
it's because the Rosh Hashanah of the fall, essentially the first day of Tishrei, was known as Yom Truah, right? It is the day of the sounding of the shofar, and over time we went from in the fall holidays for a while, like the major holiday was Sukkot. I mean, that was the holiday, which starts on the 15th day of Tishrei. But as time went on and people began to associate extra meaning to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, that this wasn't just a day of sounding the shofar and, in Yom Kippur's case, of affliction, but a time of repentance, of of reviewing the it's when it's repentance, when it's uh, reviewing our behavior, et cetera, et cetera. Those over time became known as the high holidays and wound up becoming just absolutely central to our general worship. So, yeah, we basically it became so popular, it became, the new year that most of us recognize, at least most popularly. So, no, good, no, good question. So, the 15th of Shavat, why in the world would we celebrate trees now? Well, okay, keep in mind that there's probably not snow right now in Israel.
No, rain.
Rain, absolutely. And that's the key, right? Because this is the point where you start planting trees in Israel. So the people who came up with Tu B'Shvat weren't thinking about it in a, let's say, North American climate. They were thinking about it in a Middle Eastern climate, because that's where they were. So you have that's why we do this. I have memories of growing up in Denver, Colorado, and we would be singing Tu B'Shvat songs, and literally while there was snowfall out the window. Literally, when we were watching the snowfall, it was incredible and felt so weird at the same time. But we were able to do it because we had to keep in mind that, look, obviously, I mean, it's a good lesson for all of us that, just because something is not happening where we physically are doesn't mean it's not important to other people, and doesn't mean that it's not important for the world as a whole. So for me, Tu B'Shvat was an opportunity to kind of think outside of my general bubble. And I think there was a lot of value in that. Now, Tu B'Shvat is not mentioned in the Torah. So it is not a major holiday. It is not a holiday in which we actually observe. It's not a day where we refrain from work. And by the way, just to let you know when Tu B'Shvat actually takes place, today is actually the 14th day of Shabbat. So tomorrow night, or sorry, tonight and tomorrow during the day is the actual day of Tu B'Shvat. But I figured this was the best way for us to talk about this as a group. Anyhow, so it's not a major holiday. And it's a holiday that for a long time was really kind of, I would say, a little more obscure. You really found it in Talmudic times, and then only later on, as we will briefly refer to this, but it wound up becoming popular among a number of Kabbalists, people who practiced Kabbalah, practiced Jewish mysticism. They found a lot of meaning with Tu B'Shvat. I think it's a holiday that also, because it is so much grounded in the physical world, that I think over the centuries there was probably a certain reluctance to embrace it in its entirety. This is just a guess, but it was just something that you wouldn't necessarily embrace entirely. But I think we have in recent generations not worried about that quite as much. And we are embracing more, I think, Judaism's relationship to nature in a way that perhaps was not really considered to be a common thing back in the day. So this is one reason. This is another reason why I think Tu B'Shvat has gained a little more interest over time. And what we have in terms of ritual is really very little that we have to do. So one method of celebration that has done very well for another holiday is a Seder, right? The Passover Seder, which we will talk about in greater detail as we get closer to Passover. The Passover Seder is truly, a hallmark of the Jewish year. And so people began to come up with different versions of a Tu B'Shvat Seder. Now, how do you have to do a Tu B'Shvat Seder? There's no rule. There's no rule whatsoever. And so what we're going to be reading from, at least partially today, is going to be a, one of many stabs at it. But what would we do in terms of celebration? What do we need for the celebration? Now, obviously, if we would have been in person, we would have, had this food for you. So I'm sorry that I can't bring the food to you. But what we can do is take a look at the biblical foundations of what we are celebrating when we celebrate nature. And that comes from a particular Torah portion. A Torah portion is called Akev. Now, Akev talks a lot about what we will do when we will be in the land of Israel. And so here is the quote that we rely upon. This is from Deuteronomy chapter 8, starting with verse 7. For the eternal your God is bringing you into a good land, a land with streams and springs and fountains issuing from plain and hill. And then verse 8. Eretz chita usaora vegefen utena verimon, eretz zeit shemen udvash. A land of wheat and barley, of vines, figs, and pomegranates, a land of olive trees and honey. And honey, by the way, is assumed to be date honey, not honey from a bee. That right there in verse 8, that constitutes what is known as the seven species. The seven things that are thought of as the main uh, the main things or the most important things grown in the land of Israel. So for that, I have a number of things that are at least close to that idea that oftentimes appear within a Tu B'Shvat Seder. So I'm going to show them. Let me show what I've got. So, for instance, I have for wheat, I got Triscuits. Now, and here's the thing: like, I also was like, I was at the synagogue on Friday, and I didn't want to just take all this stuff with me to the place where I'm staying. So, I don't have all of these species with me, but I decided, okay, so I've got the wheat with the Triscuits. Then I've got some raisins. I do have some grape juice, and I have a dark and light variety. And in addition, I know it wasn't listed among them, but oftentimes we refer to almonds as, a key thing. So I've got some almonds here as well. I do not have olives for a very important religious reason. I don't like olives. So I'm going to be fussy. If you want to enjoy some olives today or something in olive oil, Zygazut, enjoy, absolutely. And also pomegranates. Not for me, but people love, some people enjoy all pomegranates. Enjoy, I don't want to yuck your yum, as we might say. So those are some of the some of the things that we need to kind of keep in mind as we do this. And so there are no particular foods that you have to eat or have to drink or anything like that. But those are some ways in which we actually do a Tu B'Shvat Seder. So before we get into our kind of makeshift Seder, does anybody have any questions or comments before we get to that?
I do. So in the makeshift Seder that you're talking about, you're going to tell us what the blessings are that would be said over these food items?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we've got, and we have, numerous different blessings that can be said, and that certainly adds to the, to the festivity of it all. All right. Well, let me share my screen, and what I'm doing is, actually, hold on a second. I'm going to do this a slightly different way. Pardon me while I do this here. Okay, let me now instead. It'll be a little easier if I do a website URL. Aha. Okay. We've got it. All right. So we have here a Tu B'Shvat Seder by a wonderful writer and thinker named Noam Sion, who is the co-author of a book, A Different Night, The Family Participation Haggadah. So that's a Passover Haggadah, the information needed for Passover Seder that he created. So he made one for a Tu B'Shvat Seder. So what he includes will be familiar if you've ever been part of a Passover Seder, meaning we have 4 cups of wine or grape juice. That first cup being biblical, going back to the Garden of Eden, and the idea of going back to this time of idyllic natural surroundings. The second cup refers to the rabbinic period, the birthday of trees. That's when the idea of Tu B'Shvat was established, and the end of the tax year of fruits. The third cup meaning medieval. Um, Semester break. I'm not really sure what that's about, but the mystical repair of the world. This is when Jewish mysticism gets into it, and we get into ideas of what we need to do to create tikkun olam, the repair of the world. And then the fourth cup refers to some of our modern concerns, meaning the planting of trees in the land of Israel and raising ecological consciousness. So that's what we're going to be going through now. Again, this is if we had a full spread and everything like that, it may be we may be able to do a little bit more. But one of the things that he does is that with the 4 cups of wine or grape juice, he includes representation of 4 seasons, and that we talk about the cosmic changing of the guards between warm and cold. So you have, for the fall, white wine or grape juice. For the winter, you do white with a touch of red. In spring, it's half and half, white and red. And summer, we go simply to red. So the ideal is to be able to do a little bit of both white and red if you have those available to you. And again, wine or grape juice, certainly fine either way. Now, when it comes to the mysticism, this is one where I would say is where I'm a little less, familiar. I'm a little less fluent in these sorts of ideas. So I wouldn't be able to answer many questions about this. But this refers to different aspects of what God is and what God does. And then, so I don't want to go into them now. I can, by the way, share the link to this full document in the chat before we go. So if that is more of your interest, you can certainly engage in that. But from now, why don't we go into the beginning of it? And the idea is that first we have white only, white wine or grape juice only. Let's see. Janet, could you read beginning with would you be willing to read for us beginning with we raise our cups?
We raise our cups in a toast to the Garden of Eden, from which we were once expelled, but recall with such nostalgia, and to the land of Israel, which was the Garden of Eden of our people, a land of milk and honey.
Keep going if you would.
Okay, sure. The cosmic changing of guards between warm and cold. On Tu B'Shvat Eve, people would gather into a common location like the home of the notables. The candles would be lit, the tables covered in white tablecloths. Bottles of fragrant rose wine and bottles of wine, both red and white, lined the tables. White represents the slumber that has overtaken the organic world, the tiredness of the sun, while the red symbolizes the coming awakening of nature, to bloom and to grow as the sun warms the earth. Tu B'Shvat is the turning point as it begins to warm up. The forces of nature, cold and warmth, winter and summer, are struggling with one another until the red is triumphant and the sovereignty of spring descends on the world. This is based on something.
Right. No, indeed. It's from, a thinker of
Handar
Tzfat.
Yamin by Benjamin of Sapid. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, terrific. And so, so with that, we have, a couple of quotes from the Torah, from one of the accounts of creation, that Adonai God planted a garden in Eden in the east and placed there the man whom God had formed. And from the ground, Adonai God caused to grow every tree that was pleasing to the sight and good for food, with the tree of life in the middle of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and bad. And then, of course, we have the infamous mentioning of the trees that are okay, and then the tree that you need to avoid, which, of course, was the first one that Adam and Eve went to, but that's a whole other story. And then we have this quote from the peace activist and journalist Amos Kenan, who wrote, "This land, Eretz Yisrael, does not belong to us. It is only a national trust placed in our hands to till it and to tend it. Only in that way, and only at that time, will this land be truly our own." So, in the interest of time, we can talk about sort of the time where we went away from it, but for now, I think it is appropriate to say the blessing over the white wine and grape juice. I'm actually going to drink this from the bottle. It is grape juice. Don't worry. But we should say the blessing from this. I don't have any extra cups here, so that's why. The blessing is Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Borei Pri Hagafen. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, creator of the fruit of the vine. All right. Now, we talked about this quote here from the book of Deuteronomy, and we can engage in eating of other foods. So, for instance, when it comes to these, to the wheat, we can say a prayer for the creation of different kinds of grains, which goes as follows: Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Borei Minei Mizonot. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who has created different kinds of grains. And then with other fruit, we say the thanking God for creating fruit of the tree, which you can do, with almonds, you can do, and then with the raisins, I mean, I know the grapes come from a vine, but is it a fruit? Is it a fruit of the tree? Is it a fruit of the vine? It's, there are different interpretations of it. But the blessing for that is Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Borei Pri Ha'etz. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who has created different fruits of the tree. Okay. If you have other fruits, you may feel free to indulge, and if you don't have food near you, it's okay. But just something to do. Okay. So we get to the second cup, in which we would have a second cup of wine or grape juice, white with only a drop of red to give it color, symbolizing the turning of winter, which in Eretz Yisrael is just beginning, to recede as the air warms and white blossoms of the almond tree appear. So with that, let's do. Mary Linda, would you be so kind to read where it says New Year's and new taxes?
In Eretz Yisrael 2,000 years ago, the society was wholly agricultural. The Torah established that the land was a gift from God, or perhaps better, we are tenants on God's land. So every year we showed our gratitude by paying taxes tithes, first fruits, and so on, and so on to God's representatives on earth, the priest and Levim who serve the community like rabbis and teachers today, and the poor who are God's special wards. The natural resources we have are a kind of loan, and its interest is paid to those in need. Do you want me to continue with the next paragraph? Do you want me to continue? Do you want me to continue?
Oh, yeah, yes, please.
Okay, I didn't know if you wanted to ask somebody else to read. For different seasonal products, there were different dates established as the fiscal year. The rabbis called all these dates Rosh Hashanah, New Year's, and there were four of them. The one we will celebrate in Tishrei, September, October, was for tithing agricultural products like vegetables. The one in the winter on the full moon, 15th of the month of Shvat, February, is for the fruits of the tree. Fruit that appeared before that date was taxed for the previous year. Fruit that appeared later for the following year, this is from the Babylonian Talmud, and the Talmud called this legal date the New Year for trees, though there were no rituals associated with it at all. But trees and their fruits were very important and symbolic to the rabbis, as the following stories make clear.
And let's read, thank you. And let's read one of those stories. And by the way, when we talk about for different seasonal products, there were different dates. We're talking about like dates on a calendar, not dates the fruits. So, which I figure you might imagine. Let us let's see. I don't know why this is slowing me down. Okay. Okay. So, Jason, would you be so kind to read for us this story from the Talmud?
Yeah. The Gemara relates, when they were taking leave of one another, Rav Nachman said to Rabbi Yitzchak, Master, give me a blessing. Rabbi Yitzchak said to him, I will tell you a parable. To what is this matter comparable? It is comparable to one who was walking through a desert and who was hungry, tired, and thirsty. And he found a tree whose fruits were sweet and whose shade was pleasant, and a stream of water flowed beneath it. He ate from the fruits of the tree, drank from the water in the stream, and sat in the shade of the tree. And when he wished to leave, he said, Tree, tree, with what shall I bless you? If I say to you that your fruits should be sweet, and your fruits are already sweet, if I say that your shade should be pleasant, your shade is already pleasant. If I say that a stream of water should flow beneath you, a stream of water already flows beneath you. Rather, I will bless you as follows. May it be God's will that all saplings which they plant from you will be like you. So it is with you. With what shall I bless you? If I bless you with Torah, you already have Torah. If I bless you with wealth, you already have wealth. If I bless you with children, you already have children. Rather, may it be God's will that your offspring shall be like you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And so I think with that, it would make sense to do a second blessing over wine or grape juice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have, mainly a drink of the whites and then just a little bit of drink of the purple to represent a little bit of the of when we are moving from the coldest times to hopefully slightly warmer times. Blessing over the wine and grape juice again is Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Borei Pri Hagafen. Good.
You drink them separately, but would you normally put uh some one wine in the cup and then tin it with the other one, or you
Yeah. Normally I would combine. I just don't have an. Again, I had to kind of grab stuff before Shabbat began, so I I don't have all the materials with me. But I would have used a cup and kind of did combinations. And also it is appropriate. We already said a blessing for it, but if you wanted to eat almonds, you could do that as well. Now, the third cup of wine half red and half white, symbolizing the mixture of warm and cold typical of spring. And we will raise our cups in a toast to the spirituality intimated in nature and the Jewish mystical mission to bring tikkun, repair to a broken world. And this was very big among Jewish mystics. So let's go to talk about sort of the history of the sort of the mystical Seder. Let's see. So, Richard, would you be willing to read for us about the invention of the mystical Seder?
The text of the Seder, which has come to be known as Peri Eitz Hadar, is essentially the same as the section on Tu B'Shvat, which appears in the Sabbatan influence anthology of Kabbalistic customs. In Safed in Eretz Israel, the immigrants from the expulsion from Spain in 1492 found a new home, and there they wrote the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law. However, beyond their Talmudic learning, they also delved into Kabbalah and studied the mystical work of the Zohar, which had been written in Spain. They were moved to create new mystical rituals that soon spread throughout the Jewish world, like Kabbalah Shabbat and the song Lakadodi. Rabbi Benjamin Halevi invented the Tu B'Shvat Seder with its 4 cups representing 4 levels of mystical map of reality. The Kabbalists felt the hidden presence of God in nature and saw in trees a symbolic representation of the structure of the human, the divine, and the cosmos. Trees that are mentioned in 2 biblical passages were considered the keys to understanding reality. They found symbolic use of trees in the Tanakh. First, there is the Garden of Eden, literally of delight, with the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The second is the Proverbs, where the tree of life is equated with wisdom, understood as both the Torah and wisdom aspects of divinity. Indeed, the Kabbalists came to imagine the emanations of God, called the Sephiroth, connected in an organic pattern that they called a tree. The precise order of eating was a mystical act designed to release the divine sparks within each fruit and to bring about a tikkun, a repairing of the broken world of exile in which we live.
Hey, thank you so much. Let's see what else we should do here, and why don't let's see, why don't we have so Catherine, would you be willing to read for us this from the Rabbi Nachman's Song of the Grasses, if you could read the in English from the Likutei Moharan.
Sure. For know, each and every shepherd has his own special melody according to the grasses and specific location where he is grazing. This is because each and every animal has a specific grass grass which it needs to eat. He also does not always pasture in the same place. Thus, his melody is dictated by the grasses and place he pastures. For each and every grass has a song which it sings. This is the concept of Perek Shirah, and from the grass's song, the shepherd's melody is created.
All right, thank you so much. Why don't
I have a question.
Go for it.
And this kind of reminds me of that. Wasn't one of the traditions of the original Kabbalists like dancing joyously and singing a lot?
Very much so.
Okay, so does that ring in any of these celebrations? I hear right now about songs.
Yeah, I've been a little reticent to do songs only because, we're on Zoom and it's tough to sing together. But I was figuring that we would do a song or two at the end. So yeah, no, it's fair. I know it's like this has been relatively music free, and I recognize that that's a weakness of it, but we'll do a little bit at the end.
Well, I was thinking of the celebratory dancing that I can visualize of the original Kabbalists and how nature and the changing of the weather and things blooming and stuff and, pagan dancing and stuff. Maybe it's kind of rooted in that same era.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I mean, I think that the Kabbalists were people who really, who looked at traditional um the the idea from the like the traditional idea from the rabbis that the highest um sort of the highest way to appreciate and worship God is through study. And the Kabbalists said, not necessarily with traditional text study, and looking at different ways to relate to God and to open themselves up to God. And so those were some of the ways that they would do so. All right. So let's see. So now, before we get to the fourth cup, we can do half white, half red. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. I'll take a little bit of each. All right. And then for the fourth cup, we do a final cup just of red, symbolizing the coming warmth and fertility of summer, and raise it in a toast to renewing the land of milk and honey and learning to protect our global environment. So let's see. This passage may be a little long, but I do like this story here about the birthday of the Knesset, which is the Israeli parliament. Gilly, would you read that for us?
Perfect reading. In 1898, when Theodor Herzl, the founder of the Zionist Congress, visited Israel, it was natural that he would plant a tree, even it was not Tu B'Shvat, to mark his faith in the rebirth of the Jewish people on its land. However, he was less interested in the revival of agriculture than in the revival of Jewish political autonomy. At the opening of the Zionist Congress in 1897, he had predicted that a Jewish state would arise within 50 years. Almost exactly on time in 1949, the Knesset, the first Jewish democracy in history, was officially opened on Tu B'Shvat in Jerusalem. The master of the dedication ceremony quoted the messianic hope, a return to the days of King Solomon, when Judah and Israel dwelt safely, everyone under their own grapevine and fig tree. You're muted, Rabbi.
Thank you so much for the warning and also for the reading. And then maybe we'll do a quote from Midrash. Linda, would you be so kind to read that for us from Kohelet Rabbah?
Look at God's work, for who can straighten what he has twisted? Ecclesiastes 7:13. When the Blessed Holy One created the first human, he took him and led him round all the trees of the Garden of Eden and said to him, look at my works, how beautiful and praiseworthy they are. And all that I have created, it was for you that I created it. Pay attention that you do not corrupt and destroy my world. If you corrupt it, there is no one to repair it after you.
Thank you so much. And why don't we, with that in mind, we'll toast, if you will, one last cup, that being of red. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. All right. So, and you're right, it's a little, it feels a little empty without at least a little bit of song. So I'm going to sing just a little bit, and it's actually a pretty easy song to follow in terms of the lyrics. Here are the words: Eretz, Zavat, Chalav, Udvash. All right, so four words: Eretz, Zavat, Chalav, Udvash. And here's how it goes. Eretz zavat chalav, chalav udvash. 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 Eretz zavat chalav, zavat chalav udvash. Eretz zavat chalav, zavat chalav udvash. Eretz zavat chalav, 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 chalav udvash.
Which means what?
Which means
The
a
land?
land flowing of milk and honey.
Of course, yeah. All right.
So that is obviously part of what we celebrate today. So again, so I'm now sharing the text of what I read from in the chat. If you want to go into more of it, if you want to review it, if you want to read a little bit, go through it in more depth or read some passages that we didn't. But I, on a day like today, when we are,
I didn't do this.
when we are certainly, dealing with the cold, and we are certainly, very worried about making sure that we are warm and safe, which is obviously important. We can think ahead to know that the seasons always do come and go, and we will, even though it might not feel like it at this moment, spring will come again, the trees will bloom again, and if we are responsible with our tending of the earth, then we will ensure that the seasons will continue to come into through the end of time that we can imagine. So with that, I want to conclude our Judaism 101 today and our Seder, and to say the same thing that we say at the end of a Passover Seder, which is L'Shana Haba'ah B'Yerushalayim. Right, the next year in a renewed Jerusalem, next year, God willing, in a time where we will not only live in harmony, but also with the wonders of nature in its full majesty. And let us say Amen.
Amen.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll do Judaism 101 again next week.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to text
Tu Bishvat Sameach.
Okay.
Sameach.
Rabbi.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to text you.
That's not